Before we get started in Dharma talk, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. We are, of course, continuing on the 5 skandhas, 5 aggregates. Last week I went through form and feeling, rupa and vedana. Today I will attempt to also go through 2 more. These are 2 analytical pieces, but also 2 of my favorite aggregates, which is ironic since aggregates are not necessarily a good thing, but they are they're fun to study and to observe. So we will start with perception, sanya, which again kind of falls into correct order after the body comes in contact with a sensory object. We have a feeling toward it, and that feeling is due to our perception of it. And so our perception here means that the way in which we recognize something, right? Either as dark, as light, as hostile, as familiar, as inanimate, as human, etc., etc. And the Buddha's analysis points out that these things are interpreted quickly, and it's on this interpretation that mental impulses that our attitudes and activities are founded. So everything you've ever seen, you haven't actually seen, right? Your mind shows you interpretations, it shows you predictions, it shows you constructions. So direct perception, the thing you're most certain of, has never actually happened. And so sanya is the way your mind labels, and the way it categorizes, and the way it interprets raw sensory data. And so your senses come in contact with something, right? Light hits your eyes, the sound hits your ears, and raw data arrives. It's meaningless, it's uninterpreted. And so then perception kicks in. And that's where we say, oh, that's a tree, right? That's a friend, that's dangerous, that's mine. It creates these instant labels, these categories, and these stories behind what we see. And so you think you're seeing reality, but you're not, right? You're seeing your mind's interpretation of reality, and everyone's interpretation is obviously different, right? So no one usually sees the same shaped cloud or the same color even. So if something as simple as color, right, is constructed by perception, then what about everything else, right? Your entire experience of reality is filtered through this aggregate of sanya. So nothing is perceived directly. Everything is interpreted, everything is categorized, everything is labeled. And in the Abhidharma, the Buddhist psychology basket of stick with basket. The Abhidharma, Buddhist psychology, explains that past experiences create these mental templates, right? These karmic impressions, and that conditions future perception. So this template sits in your mind, right? Just waiting for something to hit it, waiting for something to interact with it. Then when new sensory data arrives, right, and your mind matches it against existing templates, right? And so think every time you've said, oh, this is like that time when blah, 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 or this reminds me of blah, 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 or this situation means blah, 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 right? You're not actually experiencing now. You're experiencing the past projecting onto now. So your perceptions are shaped by past karmic imprints. You see through the lens of your history, through your culture, through your society, through your conditioning. So everyone is walking around with these different lenses on, right? And so you're perceiving different realities. And unfortunately, no one realizes that we're wearing different lenses. So everyone thinks they're seeing objective truth. They think they're seeing objective reality. Kind of going back to the dangers of social media that I mentioned last week, right? Social media makes this 10 times worse. Because social media feeds, right? The feeds on social media show you content based on your existing perceptions. So the algorithm detects your biases, detects your preferences, right? Your interpretations of things. And then the feed just gives you more of that same crap, right? And so your perceptions become a closed loop. You're kind of stuck in a bubble of those reinforced beliefs. And so you perceive the world through that increasingly narrow filter of sanya, and the algorithm makes sure that you never see anything outside that little bubble, which is why we should stay away from social media. And media in general. But reality in this case becomes what your aggregate of perception creates or constructs. And everyone's trapped in that little, in their own perceptual prison, thinking that they see truth, but you're only seeing your mind's creation. But truly being able to see this, right, and understand this, then compassion kind of arises and becomes possible. Not because you agree with them, but because you understand that they are experiencing the inevitable result of their own perceptual aggregate, right? Kind of the same way when we do meditation on metta, on loving kindness, right? It's the practice of knowing that others suffer and are going through suffering or are going through hardship or whatever it may be. And we understand that we kind of put ourselves in their own shoes, in their shoes, and see how their suffering is causing. We see how their own mental formations causes suffering for them and for others, and so we aspire to lessen the anxiety that we have with them. We aspire to be a little bit more understanding, to be a little bit more open, to see things from their own perspective, right? That way, when it hits us, it's not as traumatizing. It doesn't feel like an attack to you, but because we understand that their own mental formations are also constructs, their own perceptions are also constructs, and we know that perceptions are mental constructs, then we're like, all right, well, we have something in common. We're both delusional, right? So let's suffer together, but suffer in a good way. So the liberation of the Buddha taught us, though, is to recognize perception as construction and not as reality. So he taught us to practice bare attention, which is just seeing before labeling. So when raw sensory data arrives, right, we need to pause before the mind adds its own story and see what actually is. And see what actually is happening before the interpretation happens. So perception, again, as we already know, creates reality. And fortunately for us, we know that even modern neuroscience kind of confirms this, right? Because the Buddhist insights, neuroscience, I'm going to read my notes directly here because it was a name of a scientist. The modern neuroscience confirms Buddhist insights through what we now call predictive processing theory. There's a neuroscientist called Carl Friston, and his work shows that your brain doesn't passively receive sensory data. It actively predicts what should be there based on past patterns. I'll read that again. That your brain doesn't passively receive sensory data. It actively predicts what should be there based on past patterns. So then it checks incoming data against predictions that your mind already kind of has in place, right? So most of what you see is actually prediction, not direct observation. So your mind shows you what it expects, not what's actually there, right? And we kind of have these little moments of mini predictions all the time. We see somebody doing something dangerous, and we're like, oh, they're going to get hurt, right? That's not an observation because they haven't gotten hurt yet, but we're predicting that they're going to get hurt. Or if we're in a big traffic jam, right, we're already assuming, oh, maybe there's an accident, or maybe there's construction, right? We're already predicting what we think is happening versus actually seeing. When all we know is just a dumb, slow driver that's causing the accident, that's causing the traffic jam. So it's all just a construction, right? Even optical illusions, right, prove this. Your brain predicts one thing, but then reality delivers something else. It's not actually what we see, right? One of the most famous Buddhist parables is the seeing rope as a snake in the darkness, right? So you see little twirly things, right? I've mistaken the water hose outside for snakes all the time. I'm like, nope, I ain't watering today. That's a snake. Not happening. Then my idiocy kind of snaps out of it. I'm like, oh, wait, there shouldn't be any snakes here. There's enough cats to scare them off. Plus, there shouldn't be a snake the size of my wrist around here either. But once we kind of once we start to observe rather than perceive, then that system starts to break down, and suddenly you start to see the prediction for what it is. Again, a construction, a process of conditions. Then if the illusion then reveals that is just a prediction, then what about everything else, right? What about your perception in this very moment? Your perception of sitting, of seeing me, of hearing my voice, right? How much is a direct observation, and how much of it is prediction? How much of it is interpreted, is constructed? Buddha's answer? Anyone want to take a guess? Yeah, like how much are you actually directly observing right now? Or are you just predicting? Yeah, none of it. But it tells you none of that what you're predicting right now or seeing, observing right now is actually correct. Right? You already have a factor in your mind of what you expect me to say, or how you expect me to ask questions, or how you expect others to answer questions.
So maybe I was predicting that you're going to give the constructed example 500 times. That was my prediction.
There you go, see? Great example. And so you've never actually seen reality, ever, according to the Buddha. But everything you've ever perceived has been your own mind's construction, right? So our consensus reality, for example, is basically a collective hallucination. We're all hallucinating together. We're all delusional together. So everything you've ever perceived, right, has been filtered through this aggregate, through sanya. And every certainty you've held, every obvious truth, every I know what I saw, right, all that is perception. It's not reality. It's constructed and not discovered. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. It's difficult, right? This is that aha moment that clicks you out of our delusion. Is once you start to recognize and have, to a degree, realize this truth, then there's no way you can ever forget about it, right? You can't unsee it. And once we've recognized this and penetrated that truth, right, then things like arguments start to lose their charge, lose their power, because you recognize competing perceptions, right? And certainty becomes suspect because you know it's constructed. You know it's not true reality. It's simply the mind putting together pieces according to past experiences, to past ideas that you've had, past interactions that you've had. So other people's views become interesting because you understand they're perceiving differently. So it's not truth versus lies, but perception versus perception. Because every perspective is partial, and every view is limited, every interpretation is conditional. And so when we start to recognize and realize that the things that we see and perceive aren't reality, but simply just these constructs of past interpretations, it should humble you, because you'll recognize that maybe I wasn't right after all. Maybe I'm wrong. Nobody wants to be wrong, but guess what? You're wrong 24/7. You thinking in itself is wrong, is already wrong, right? Your ideas are wrong, your perceptions are wrong, your biases, your discriminations, all this is made up. And it's made up by your mental formations, sankhara, the fourth aggregate. And these sankharas are programs, right, that we've developed as we've learned to interpret what things mean to us. So they're headed by volition, that push that jumps into our mind. Think of things of why we check our phone, right? Why does that one person's voice make you tense before they even speak? Or why does criticism linger for days while compliments can vanish within minutes or seconds? Right? This isn't necessarily weakness or lack of willpower, right? You're experiencing sankhara, because this aggregate is important to understand, because this is where change is possible. And sankhara includes everything, all our mental formations, except for feeling and perception, but it's the automatic and habitual behaviors, our urges, your impulses, your habits, your intentions, your decisions, your reactions, your personality traits, everything that makes you you, right? Everything you think that defines your character, all the mental formations arise from conditions, right? Because they're not chosen, and they're definitely not permanent. Again, going back to the example of checking your phone, right? Let's say you're at work, you're working, you're focused, you're making progress on your work, but suddenly, without even deciding to, your hand reaches over for that phone. This is a phone. Your hand reaches over for this phone, right? You pick it up, you unlock it, you start scrolling, for like 5-10 minutes, right? But eventually, I hope, you snap out of it. And you may ask yourself, why did I even do that? Right? That's a mental formation. It's conditioned over thousands of repetitions. And so when boredom arises, that formation activates, right? The hand reaches over, the phone appears in your hand. You didn't choose this automatic response. It just happened through you. So this is what we're dealing with. It's not a character flaw or a personal failure, but a mental formation and conditioned patterns. It becomes habit, right? Just that, picking up the phone and seeing if there's a message or whatever, right? It's a habit. Interestingly though, your entire personality, everything that is essentially you, is just a collection of mental formations. So if someone says that they're an introvert, right, that's just a pattern of formations around social situations. And so when small talk is happening, the discomfort formation activates, and withdrawal behavior follows. And if you repeat that thousands of times, it becomes who you are. Right? No one's naturally an introvert. People make themselves an introvert or an extrovert, whatever new verts they come out with these days. But it's not who you are, right? It's just a pattern, it's a condition, it's a formation. So something you say, it's something that you say, right? If you say, I'm a morning person, that's just the habitual formation around sleep and energy. If you say I have a short temper, right? That's just a strong reaction. It's a strong reactive formation around frustration. Or even saying that I'm a creative person, right? That's just a formation that connects novelty with pleasure and approach. But none of these are fixed. They're all just patterns. They're all formations. They're all conditional. And that's kind of the key here, right? And then we have, of course, our modern obsession with personality tests, right? And that kind of shows this perfectly, because there are dozens of these tests, right? I remember taking at least 3 in college, 3 different personality tests. But why the obsession or the desperate need to categorize ourselves, right? It's because we want to know who we are. We want a label, a category, a defined identity. So from the Buddhist side of this, right, it's describing temporary mental formations. Because the patterns may be real and accurate for now, in that moment, but they're not eternal essence. They're not permanent, right? They just happen to be the current configuration of how your mind is. So if you're in, INFJ, for instance, right? It just describes your current formations. But that formation can change according to the conditions, according to new experiences, to new environments, to even your practice. But the danger is these tests solidify this fluid formation into something fixed, into a fixed identity. I am type 8, right? Becomes, this is my nature. You take it, because then you end up taking a temporary pattern and you give it a permanent label. And now you've locked yourself in this little bubble. Buddhism, at least, offers a different approach to this and says that it's not I am socially anxious, but instead it is strong anxiety formations appear around social situations. Right? So there's a difference there. One is identity, it's fixed and it's permanent, but the other is description, it's conditional, it's changeable. So formations create karma, and karma reinforces formations, and formations create more karma. So the loop just tightens until patterns feel like destiny. I feel like this is how I am. Again, in the Abhidharma, it lists 52 mental formations. So of course there are wholesome formations like compassion, patience, generosity, wisdom, loving kindness. There are also the unwholesome formations like greed, hatred, delusion, jealousy, resentment, and arrogance. And the neutral formations like attention, concentration, memory, basic habits, right? These are not good or bad in themselves, but they shape your experience. They create karma. They determine outcomes. So our practice is to weaken the unwholesome mental formations and strengthen the wholesome formations, not through force, but through observation, through direct observation. But it's these mental formations that keep us in samsara, right? It keeps the wheel turning, right? And it creates karmic momentum that carries consciousness from life to life. Sorry, moment to moment. I need to update my notes because the comment is no longer correct. It carries consciousness from moment to moment. The easiest way to see our own mental formations is through, of course, meditation, right? Because it reveals them as they arise. So when you're sitting and you're concentrating on the breath, for instance, suddenly there's that urge to check your phone, right? But right there is the formation appearing, and it's visible, completely visible to you. But that is the key moment here, because if you can observe that urge to check your phone without obeying it, and you've recognized it, and you've labeled it, and you've went back to your breath, that is a successful alteration of a mental formation, right? So the objective isn't to not have the formations necessarily arise, but to know when they do arise, and you see it for what it is, and you don't allow the urge to take hold of it, right? Same thing with anything else we do in meditation, when we label during meditation, right? If we're able to observe things for what they are as they arise, then it's much easier to recognize those types of formations off the cushion, right? So if you're sitting in meditation and someone walks in, or makes noise, or you hear the stuff outside happening, there's a possible irritation that arises, right? Because you're trying to sit peacefully in quietude and meditate and become enlightened, and all of a sudden there's stuff happening around you that's disturbing you, right? That then the formation activates, right? And the urge to react appears. But if you observe it and you note it as anger formation, right? You give it that label for what it is, and you return back to your breath, the formation appeared, but you didn't react, right? You didn't obey it. You didn't allow the mind to control you. You are now controlling the mind to a degree. And of course, gradually over time, this automatic quality weakens, right? And then the space starts to open between that formation and response. And that space, the Buddha taught, is freedom. So the voice in our head claiming that this is who I am, that's a formation. The identity claiming to be permanent, that's a formation. The self defending itself doesn't exist. Because every habit you can't break, every reaction you regret, that's how I am story, all of these are mental formations. That's not you, it's not yours, and it's definitely not permanent. They arose through conditions. Change the conditions and they start to dissolve. Simply put, right? Now, what's a habit of yours that needs to be deconstructed? What is a common habit, I should say? What are some common habits we have? Overthinking.
See, the common habit of mine, I think, generally I have a perception of like other people's, what is, and most of the times, like, what are they thinking about me? That's like common thinking, which usually don't know, but their perception towards you, whatever perception. I have no idea what the perception, but you're always thinking, okay, they're thinking about me like this, like this, like this. And most of the time, like you mentioned social media, and before you social media generally, we create a kind of template, and because there's hard mentality in social media, also there's input, so whatever you think, people start following and predicting about one thing or another. But before that, long time, like 30, 40, 50 years ago, we had HR, human resource department, taking of these things, like, like improvement, like all those, like MBAs, because they have to say, you have this method, this, you have this, you have this, you have this, and so they already put in these categories, and they continue doing more and more and more. So they started creating perception towards each other. So I don't know whether this was their way to working people together or dividing or whatever. But that was the perception they created, and that kind of creates your mentality or your attitude, that your template, like what other people thinking of me. I mean, not what, actually they're thinking about me this. And that's the most disturbing element in your it's time consuming, it's just your brain is exhausted. Okay, this person is thinking about me this. And it's kind of like,
Well, let me ask you this. Why do you care?
one, it's just why. It's not.
No. Try again. Wrong answer. Try again. Why do you care? I mean, it's going to take more than a few minutes to recognize that, right? This is a meditation question. But I can guarantee you it's not the superficial answer you just gave, right?
I don't answer, but I don't want to do that because it's
Well, like I said before, if something is difficult, it's probably correct. It's the right path, right? So we have to come into realizations of these types of questions in order to liberate ourselves, right? There is a lot of mental construction and habits that we do, that we have, that we've built, that we've fed or starved, well, not starved, but definitely fed, that aren't beneficial or wholesome or correct, right? Whether it's having perceptions like caring about what other people think, having perceptions about different types of people, right? Whether their race or gender or sexuality or whatever it may be, or politics or geography even, or food or preferences, all these types of constructs are really dangerous, right? Essentially. And I can understand when at least I remember when I was writing these notes, and I was writing about this neuroscientist, Carl Friston. I remember reading one of the earliest papers on personality tests. And their objective at the time was kind of wholesome, right? Because they wanted it to kind of group like-minded people together. And I'm like, oh, that's cute, right? But now that I've reread this morning and last night, or the other day, I'm like, this is the dumbest thing anyone has ever come up with. Because I can guarantee you, right? Because again, I wrote this, I don't know how many years ago, but when I wrote this, I wrote down INFJ, which was my personality, whatever it was, type, right, at the time. But I can guarantee you if I retook this personality test, that would be something different, right? Which is a beautiful thing to realize, because knowing that something as fundamental as your personality can change, right? That's such a eye-opening, mind-opening realization, right? If something as core as your own personality, as your own identity, is changeable, right? Then that gives you so much freedom and space to actually do something about it or with it, right? Meaning that your ideas, your perceptions, your biases, your beliefs in things aren't permanent. They're not cemented. Just because you think in a certain way now will not last. I can guarantee you, right? Think of anything. Just think of a year ago, 2 years ago, even last week, right? I can guarantee you that you've had something in your mind that you've thought of in a certain way and you believed it, but eventually that belief had changed. No? Right?
So how do you want to wrong answer to that?
Mm-hmm. Wrong answer? No wrong answers.
No wrong answer because of society. Now you are living in the society, so that's why we are always concerned about this society. Or like previous example, like I get a job 20, 30 years old, maybe still true. So you want to fit in that society, and you don't want to be outcast. So you're always thinking what they're thinking about me, what they are. So you kind of validate, you kind of predict what they're thinking about.
Right.
You're always constantly predicting, and maybe your prediction is completely wrong, but you are always trying to fit into that, trying to fit yourself in that instead of thinking like your right answer.
Right.
You're not thinking about that. You're not thinking about someone else and all that. How do I fit in this? How do I fit in like means where like people think me right, correct, like I'm behaving like that. And like if you, as soon as you start behaving against what they're behaving or what like you are anti or you go in the line kingdom instead of hard mentality. So hard mentality like everything same.
Right.
But line like it's completely independent and does whatever it has to do to affect you.
Right.
But as soon as you're line, like you're outcast, you say this guy is an good. So that's again wrong answer. That's how it is.
Well, that's why fashion exists, right? That's why cosmetics exist. That's why brands exist, right? They're trying to, society, the world, is trying to mold you into something. And you may fall into that mold or you may not, right? But the majority of the time, people are forcing themselves to fit a mold. That's the problem, right? So when you start to worry about what other people think, you're forcing yourself to fit a mold of how you want them to think about you, right? Think of us as white monastics in America, in Texas. It's not a common view, right? So when we go out and into robes and people are like, oh, these two white bald heads wearing these Asian clothing, right? I can guarantee you, and I stopped carrying them a very long time ago, but I can guarantee you there's at least half of those people that see us think that we're just cosplaying or something, right? They think that we just left a karate lesson or something, or that we're trying to,
Most people think like we have schooling.
Yeah, right? They don't try to understand why we're wearing robes or why we have our heads shaved, right? They don't ask questions. They're making assumptions. They're making predictions according to what they know. All this is false.
Even like race, white, black,
100%. Absolutely, 100%. 100%, right? Plus, these things are completely out of your control, right? You did not choose to be born male or female, black or white, yellow, purple, orange. Like you didn't ask for any of these, right? You had no power to change or influence. But when you start to add these labels, you start to separate. But in reality, strip the skin off the body, and we're all going to look exactly the same, right? But we create these mental formations so that we can categorize, so that we can separate, so that we can segregate, so that we can place specific ideas and terms and politics and blah, blah, blah into specific groups. But it makes no sense. Anything to say, Louise? Really? Okay. I either gave a really bad talk or a really good one at this point. I did just make an assumption. Good point. Good point. I did make an assumption.
So then just one more thing. If like we don't live in the world of predictions, again it's like same thing like old or template. But if you don't do prediction, you can't, like for example, weather prediction or stock prediction or anything like all the games, for example, any games. So the games are based on prediction, whether it's gambling or the real games. They're predicting, okay, the ball is going to fall here. I have to be there, right? Or football, I mean, it's like ball is going to be there, our ball is going to be there. So you are always predicting. If you don't do it, you're never going to win.
Well, it's more of a reaction than a prediction, right? A reaction is the act of responding to what is happening right now, right? Versus a prediction is more about trying to foretell the future, right? You're trying to act as a psychic in some way, shape, or form, right? So like as I mentioned earlier, the prediction of seeing someone do something dangerous, right? A prediction of you saying, oh, they're going to fall and hurt themselves, that's a prediction. A reaction would be, oh, if something is happening bad, or if they are getting hurt or they're about to fall and you see the ladder jiggle and start to lean, your reaction at this point is to do something. But you can't actually predict if it's going to fall or not, right? But even when you're playing a game, right? Games, in a sense, mostly are strategy, right? And a strategy isn't about prediction. It's about facts, for the most part, and being able to kind of react according to what is happening right as it's happening, right? I can understand the similarity, I guess, between prediction and reaction to a degree, but at least in the case of an aggregate, prediction is simply in terms pretending to know what's going to happen before it happens.
Yeah, I will give you an example. Like, for example, traffic lights and traffic signs and all this. And traffic lines, they're based on prediction, like, okay, this is the traffic flow is this much. And most of the time, you're sitting on the traffic line on these sides, when you're sitting on a red light, and on this side, oh, yeah, you should, but there's nobody coming from other side, any side. So you're just standing for 3 minutes there, waiting for the red light to be green.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with speed, the rumble strip or speed breaker.
Mm-hmm.
And we put it everywhere, they assume that they predict like everybody is going to be speeding up like going 34 weeks. But just for one person, everybody has to suffer through those. So, I mean,
Holistic suffering.
There are so many examples,
True.
but
True.
that's based on the probability theory.
Mm-hmm.
And they just predict like things, which is, I'm not complaining, but it's what it is.
It is what it is. It's true.
At the very end, this is all mental formation. Even the 5 Aggregates, you need to let them go.
It's like knowing that you're sick, right? As soon as you know that you're sick, you take preventative measures, right? You take a medicine, I hope, maybe.
COVID vaccine was like that. Everyone had COVID. Well, anyway.
That's just statistics, actually, at this point. I half agree with you. But even to your case, Louise, even the five aggregates in themselves is a mental formation. The abandonment of the five, not the abandonment, even with the realization, this five aggregates are still they still exist, right? Same way when someone is enlightened, suffering still exists, right? It's just knowing that they exist. That's the point, right? And so when you know that everything you think and see and feel and believe and blah, 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 knowing that they're mental formations, that they are impermanent, that they are just conditioned, right? Based on past experiences, based on past beliefs, et cetera, then there's not such a strong hold to them. There's not a strong belief, there's not a strong hold to your beliefs, to your perceptions, and to your mental formations. And knowing that they are not static or stagnant and permanent, and they'll change, and that they can change, that's where the beauty of liberation comes in. Knowing that change is possible, right? Knowing that if you have this idea that you're not a good Buddhist, you're not a good practitioner, you're not a good meditator, or you're unable to learn or teach, or a lot of people have or feel, right? They believe. But if you're able to surpass that and see that this belief in itself is just based on past experiences and not truth, then you can become a better practitioner. You can become a better meditator, right? Because these things are changeable. Your belief, let's say you hate, this is just an example, let's just say you hate Asians, right? For whatever reason. But if you sit and meditate on why, right? And really be honest with yourself. And you may come to a kind of, a gross realization, right? When I say gross, I mean not like disgusting, but profound, right? You may come to a profound realization of whatever reasoning it is, right? Maybe someone some Asian kid in middle school stole your lunch or something, right? And all of a sudden you think all Asians are thieves. I don't know, just a stupid example, right? But it could be something that had happened that just persisted over time, and all you've done is just add to it, right? So that, and the more you add to it, the more you see it in the world, right? So you see it more in the news, or you see it more in real life, or you see it more in the stories that people say. A great example I think we may have all encountered is, or at least I have, say you want to buy a new car, right? So you have this new car in your mind, and all of a sudden, every time you go out, you see 20,000 of those same cars. Like, why does everyone all of a sudden have this one car that I want? Right? Has someone experienced that before, or is it just me? And so it's seeing the unseen. So if you're able to see the unseen, then you have this aha moment. Like, all right, well, my seeing that I believed was so true and so certain is false and uncertain. That means it's changeable. That means I can do something about it. That means I can change my suffering into non-suffering. Or if you want to suffer, suffer. I don't care.
So the real liberation is from the effects of the five aggregates, not from the five aggregates themselves, because otherwise you will need to be there.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Not attaching ourselves.
100%. 100%. Because otherwise what? We're attaching to our body, the way we look, the way we react, the way people see us. No, sorry, that's not a body, it's a mental formation. And the feelings you have toward things, you like it, you don't like it, comfortable, uncomfortable, hate, love, all that's changeable. The body is changeable, obviously, because we get age and we get sick and we die. Feelings are obviously changeable, right? Not permanent. Our perceptions are not permanent. Our mental formations are not permanent. Consciousness, want to take a guess? Not permanent. And so if all these things, right, because the 5 aggregates is the collection of the aspects of that make up a person, right? And so if all this that creates what I believe to be Quang Tri, that I believe to be this permanent, unchanging, everlasting person, and if I believe in that fully, then I'm just an idiot, right? I'm just a sheep, right? But when you recognize that this body is changeable, it is impermanent, because I'm going to get old, I'm going to get sick, and I'm going to die. That's a good realization. Typically, people want to avoid getting sick. They avoid wanting to get old, right? Hence, all the surgeries in the world to change the way you look, all these supplements that people take, all these diets and exercises to lessen aging. That's not accepting truth, right? Feelings toward things. If you hated something your entire life, like, no, that's just how I am. That's just how I just don't like this. This makes me completely uncomfortable. I hate this, or I love this. This is all I like. I only want chocolate cake, and not vanilla, and not strawberry. That's not true, because that can change, right? Taste buds can change. When I was a kid, I used to love cheese. Now I hate cheese. Well, I don't say cheese. I hate cheese. I know, right? Everyone's like, you're such a bad person for hating cheese. I know, we can't be friends anymore. Perceptions are changing, right? Our mental formations, all these are impermanent. And so the realization of this, right? It doesn't have to be a fireworks show of a realization, right? But the simple recognition of the impermanence of these things, right, starts to weaken them. And the more you recognize them as they appear, the more you react accordingly, the weaker they all get. And eventually they have no effect on you, right? They'll still be there, right? Obviously, because you still form, you still feel, you still perceive, you still think. So all this is still going to be there, even after a realization. But you know that whatever you feel, think, and see and perceive are impermanent. So they have no effect on you. They cannot cause you harm, they can't cause you suffering, and they cannot cause you happiness. Things just are.
But you still have the feeling.
Yes, you still have them, but you don't.
There's some kind of effect.
There's some kind of what? Effect?
Yeah.
The effect is non-attachment. So the feeling of Vinay insulting me has no effect. Right? It is what it is. Or if someone hits me, hit me. Oh yeah, there's a physical feeling for sure, right? Or there's a mental feeling, but you don't grasp to it. You don't hang on to it. So if someone insults you, instead of holding on to that insult and thinking about it all day or for the next 2 days, that's wrong perception, or that's a wrong type of feeling. If you just accept it for what it is, or whatever, and you move on with your life, it still happened, right? You still had a sense of feeling of the insult, but you don't hang on to it. You don't linger over it. If that makes sense.
Hold on.
Correct, right.
That's where, like, if I can see the form of the mental formations are temporary in the sense like you can recognize and you can eradicate them immediately, or they fade away gradually within like forms, as I say, when you're perception is the most dangerous one. It's just never, because you always trying to validate your perception is I'm right. And like as soon as the perception doesn't match with the other, the perception doesn't match or doesn't validate, you get angry and upset. Because you are perceiving about yourself or about or what you are like, and then your feelings arise and anger or any kind of like all those things starts happening. So I think perception is the most dangerous and very hard to eradicate.
I would say mental formation is the most obvious. Perception is simply just seeing something, right? Mental formation is where the ideas happen, right? Where the thinking happens. Yeah. Right. And so let's say you saw someone that looked dangerous approaching you, or approaching your daughter, right? Perception is the dangerous person. That's perception. Mental formation is they're a dangerous person, they're going to hurt me or my daughter, right? So the making up of a story, or the anger or the feeling that arises from perceiving this dangerous looking person, that's mental formation. That's where the danger arises, right? Because that mental formation can be changed. They're not a dangerous person, they just look thuggish, right? Just because someone looks thuggish or looks like a thug doesn't mean they're dangerous. It just means they have bad fashion.
The reason I was saying mental formation can be corrected because as soon as this person comes, talk to you, is very nice and all that, and this is just our
Correct, right.
But perception is always very generalized. It's always generalized, like we were talking about race or something like broader than that. Perception is always you're perceiving the whole like this hard or whatever you want to call it. You're thinking this is versus this. Like for example, Trump has a perception about this. He's a lot of things about this. Maybe right, maybe not. But who knows? But he has perception, and that's very hard, like very dangerous. It's very general. It's whether you
agree or not.
Mental formation is I put in the same category as feelings go away very fast. You're angry in 1 second, and then like by you cool down and maybe you will be angry for a little bit more, a few more days, and it will go away, or maybe a few weeks, few months, or maybe like angry for 2 years, 5 years. But the perception is clearly lives for all your life. Whatever you like, I'm talking about it in general.
Yeah.
Anything you think like this tree is or snake is dangerous. I can't touch or see snake. My daughter, she can hold the snakes, right? So like that's the perception, that's a phobia. I have it, and it's from like because that's how I see the snakes. Snakes are dangerous.
Well, that's a form of mental formation, though.
It's not perception.
Perception is seeing the snake. That's it. Think of perception as just seeing, right? There's no feeling, there's no idea, there's nothing behind it. It's just bowl, right? That's perceiving. Mental formation is when I ring it, I hear the bell, I either like it or I don't like it. That's a mental formation. But just seeing something in itself, that's just perception.
Isn't that form?
Form here means is referencing specifically body. And as an aggregate, yes.
Use the example of snakes. Like there are some snakes that are dangerous. You can tell by looking at them that they're venomous based on like the way the snake looks
Right.
and the pattern, like they cut the scales. So like I don't think perception is bad. Just seeing things from how they are without projecting your own personal internal perception.
Yeah.
Right.
I think all these things are dangerous. I can't touch it. It's like it's very much for the poisonous amount. But I will be scared. Like I'm not like even like not scared, but I will be just. It's just a phobia. It's called phobia. It's just no.
Just finish.
No. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. You're talking about change. I'm trying to get it. I'm not going to the fifth one.
this isn't about change. None of this is necessarily about change. The only one that you want to change is mental formations, right? The way you think and believe and act, and feel about things. Form here just means that you accept form for what it is, or accept a body for what it is. That means that if you get sick, you get sick. You agree. You allow it to be sick. If you're ugly, you're ugly. If you're beautiful, you're beautiful.
So you cannot change your feelings or perceptions?
No, you can. All this is changeable, right?
But not form.
But form is changeable, but we're not enforcing change, meaning that you're not getting plastic surgery to make yourself look better or look younger, right? You're just accepting your aging body as is. But the same thing with feelings. When a feeling arises, you have to accept it for what it is, right? Whether it's good or bad. The key here is to recognize what it is. Then, as you go down to mental formations, you recognize that that feeling is bad or unwholesome. At that point, you say, all right, this is bad or unwholesome, right? And I want to change it. None of this necessarily has to be in this order, for instance, right? But it's all about recognizing, it's all about recognition, okay? And
so it's more about recognition and letting go rather than changing.
Correct, right? But when I mentioned about change earlier, it's the recognition that change is possible. Not that it has to be changed or needs to be changed or is changeable, but that it is possible, right?
That goes to right way, right speech,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
All the list like
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
The way I see it, it's like people think that their identity is static and
Mm-hmm.
can move because they're attached to the five aggregates.
Yep.
But since these things are not permanent, we don't have to attach ourselves to a static, unchanging identity. So everything will change.
Yeah.
We have to change it. But
Exactly.
it will eventually, nothing is permanent, because our form is not permanent. My form's not permanent, you know.
You're in crutches, obviously, right? Right. Yep.
And then they'll change again, so I'll heal
Exactly.
and get better, so that's the way I see it.
This is very good example, like body is so fragile, the form is so fragile, like it can vanish within a second, like you're going, you're walking, it's gone, somebody's run over, it's gone, get back. I mean, but we don't recognize, we get attached to it, and that's what you're talking about, like, don't get attached
Mm-hmm.
to your form or feel, I mean, physical form.
Yep.
So we get attached to it, so this is me, and then everything is all, the form doesn't exist, none of them exist, right?
Yep.
I just want to add this, because I mean, mixing five aggregates with attachment is pretty dangerous, because that brings destruction. I mean, because as soon as I have my five aggregates and I attach to them, I start thinking, well, everyone else that's not like me should be destroyed in order for me to survive.
Mm.
So it's pretty dangerous. I mean, racism goes after, I mean, if someone attaches to the five aggregate, it brings racism, it brings so many things.
Yeah. Obviously, look at the state of the world, right?
Yeah.
The state of the world is the way it is because people are attaching to the five aggregates. So imagine if everyone was detached, if everyone was just at peace with everything. Of course, that would never, ever happen. But imagine. But, and I say that that can't happen because the same, like the other night during the New Year our ceremony, right? We had our discussion afterward. And I mended another statement of mine, right? The statement was the answer to a question of what is the purpose of life, right? If you know me, you've heard me say that this is the most annoying question to ever be asked of me. Like, I hate that question. But my answer was always the purpose of life is to be happy, right? And I mended that because that's incorrect. Because if there's happiness, that means there's unhappiness, right? And so you can't have one, because if unhappiness didn't exist, happiness also wouldn't exist, right? If you ask a person that is living in a complete perfect life, someone that has all the money they ever wanted, has perfect health, has a zero desire of wanting anything. If you ask them what it feels like to suffer, they're going to be like, what are you talking about? What is suffering? They have no concept of suffering, right? Same thing if you ask someone who's in total hell, like, what's happiness to you? They'd also ask, what do you mean, what is happiness? If they're suffering and tortured all the time, that's all they know. They have no concept of anything other than that. And so we can't say to be happy, because that means unhappiness, we can't say is life's purpose is to be happy, because that means there's unhappiness still there. And if unhappiness doesn't exist, happiness can't exist. The word itself wouldn't exist, right? There can be an opposite. There can be just one.
I mean, that's when the devil says to God, you need me.
So life purpose is see the things as they are.
It's to see things they are. My amendment was to be at peace. Peace of mind, meaning, I just like to see things as they are, to accept things as they are, whether good or bad. Peace is the acceptance.
But then there will be war.
Let there be war. It has nothing to do with you.
You don't have to attach to the war. You have to just view to see the things as they are, see the war as this war is.
Mm-hmm.
If there will be a purpose, wouldn't it be tame your mind?
I would also label that as peace.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, we are so over time, so please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times, and we'll go to chanting. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Any positive karmic action we've accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them full enlightenment. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Page 1, please. Incense in the censer now is burning, all the Dharma realm in every place, auspicious clouds appearing, our sincere intention thus fulfilled. As all Buddhas now show their perfect body, home eschew the incense cloud canopy, Bodhisattva and great Bodhisattva. Gratitude we offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space, and may it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting our careful efforts, our wholehearted mindfulness, and the abundant
understanding slowly ripening, may we and all beings be companions of Buddha and Bodhisattvas, may realize our true home. Is to the eternally abiding Buddhas, the supreme Dharma and sagely Sangha throughout the Dharma realm and the realm of empties in 3 periods of time. Fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha Maitreya, honored future Buddha Manjushri, great wisdom Bodhisattva, universal great Khan, Bodhisattva, all Dharma guarding Deva Bodhisattvas, and the glorious mountain assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate bliss, Avalokiteshvara, great compassion Bodhisattva, great strength Bodhisattva, first or great vow Bodhisattva, and the assembly of great pure seed-like Bodhisattva. Profound and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold it, and I vow to pass the Tathagata's true meaning. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Pilgrim, briefly in this world I am grateful and joyful to hear the Lotus Sutra. How hard to be born a human again, but I might hope to hear once more the Lotus Sutra. The Buddha moon is hidden, the son of Maitreya not yet arisen, in the long night's darkness in between only the Lotus Sutra sheds its light. The wonderful Dharma of the Lotus Sutra, whoever copies it, reads it, lives it, they say will be sure of the fivefold Dharma with his 6 fruits cleansed in the end. He who chants the Lotus Sutra
page 96.
Chapter 17, Distinctions and Benefits. At the time the Bodhisattva Maitreya rose from his seat, bared his right shoulder and pressed his palms together, and facing the Buddha said, "The Buddha preaches a rarely encountered law one never heard from. One possesses great powers, and his lifespan cannot be measured. The countless sons of the Buddha, hearing the world honored, take distinctions and describe the benefits of the law they will gain. Find their whole bodies filled with. Some abide in the stage of no regression. Some have Adani, some can speak pleasingly and without hindrance, or retain 10,000, a million repetitions of the teaching. Some bodhisattvas, numerous as the dust particles of 1,000 major worlds, are all able to turn unregressing wheel of the law. Some bodhisattvas, numerous as the dust particles of 1,000 intermediate worlds, are all able to turn the pure wheel of the law. And some bodhisattvas, numerous as the dust particles, minor worlds, are assured that after 8 more rebirths they will be able to complete the Buddha way. Some of 432 times the 4 continents, after a corresponding number of rebirths, will become Buddha. Some bodhisattvas, numerous as the dust particles of one set of the 4 continents, after 1 more rebirth, will attain comprehensive wisdom. Thus, when living beings hear of the great length of the Buddhas, they gain pure fruits and rewards that are immeasurable and free of outflows. Again, living beings, numerous the dust particles of 8 worlds, hearing the Buddha describe his lifespan, all set their minds on unsurpassed way. The world honored one preaches a law that is immeasurable and cannot be fathomed, and those who benefit from it are made as boundless as the open air. Heavenly mandala flowers and gray mandala flowers rain down. Shakas and Brahmas like Ganges sands arrive from countless Buddha lands. Sandal and aloes in a jumble of fine powder rain down like birds flying down from the sky. They scatter as an offering over the Buddha of the air. Heavenly drums of their own accord emit wonderful sounds. Heavenly rose by the 1,000, 10,000 million come whirling and fluttering down. Wonderful jeweled encrusted censers burn priceless incense, which of its own accord permeates everywhere, and offering to all the world honored ones a multitude of great bodhisattvas, full banners and canopies adorned with the 7 treasures. 10,000, a million in kind, lofty, wonderful in rows, reaching up to the Brahma head. Before each one of the Buddhas hang jewel streamers and excellent banners, while in thousands and thousands of verses of thus come ones are sung. All these many things have never been known in the past, hearing that the Buddha's life is immeasurable. All beings are filled with joy. The exhaust all the states of meditation. If this person for 100, 1,000, 10,000, 1,000,000 kalpas should carry out these meritorious practices, as I have described above, still those good men and women who hear me describe my lifespan and believe it for even a moment, when blessings that surpass those of such a person. If a person is completely free of all doubt and regret, if in the depths of his mind he believes for one instant his blessings will be such as this, these bodhisattvas, when they hear me describe my lifespan, are able to believe and accept what I say. These persons will gratefully accept the sutra, saying our wish is that in future ages we may use our long lives to save living beings, just as the world honored one king of the Shakyas roars like a lion in the place of practice, preaching the law without fear. So may we in ages to come honored and revered by all, when we sit in the place of practice, describe our lifespan in the same manner. If there are those profound in mind, pure, honest, and upright, who hearing retain it all, who follow principle in understanding the Buddha's words and persons such as this will have no doubts about my lifespan. At the time the Buddha said to the Bodhisattva and Mahasattva Maitreya, if after I have entered extinction a person can honor and uphold this sutra, his blessings will be immeasurable, as I have described above. It is as though he has supplied all manner of alms, erecting a tower of adorned with the 7 treasures, and with a central pole very tall and wide that tapers gradually as it reaches the Brahma heaven. Jeweled bells by the 1,000, 10,000 million moving, though emitting a wonderful sound, and for immeasurable kalpas he offers alms to this town. Flowers, incense, various kinds of necklaces, heavenly robes, and assorted musical instruments, and birds, fragrant oil, and lamps of butter oil that constantly light up the area around in the evil age of the latter day of the law. If there is someone who can uphold this sutra, it will be as though he's if someone can uphold this sutra, it will be as though in the presence of the Buddha he should use oxhead sandalwood to build monks' quarters as an offering, or 32 halls as high as a tall trees, thus of all kinds of superior foods and wonderful clothes and bedding, residences for assemblies of hundreds, thousands. Without believing and understanding, mind accepts, upholds, reads, recites, and copies the sutra, or causes others to copy it or offer alms to the sutra roll, scattering flowers, incense, and powdered incense, or constantly burning fragrant oil extracted from Sumana, Champaka, or Atimuktaka flowers. If he offers alms such as he will gain immeasurable merits, boundless as the open air, and his blessings will also be like this. How much more so if one upholds his sutra, and at the same time dispenses alms, keeps the precepts, is forbearing, delights in meditation, and never gives way to anger or evil speaking. If one displays reverence toward memorial towers, humbles himself before monks, gives a wide berth to an arrogant, constantly ponders upon wisdom, and is never angry when asked difficult questions, but responds compliantly with an explanation. If one can such practices, his merits will be beyond measure. If you see a teacher of the law who has cultivated virtues such as you should scatter heavenly flowers over him, clothe his body in heavenly robes, bow your head before his feet in salutation, and in your mind imagine you see the Buddha. You should also think to yourself, before long he will proceed to the place of practice and attain a state of no outflows and no action receives blessings that are immeasurable. How much more so who the Dharma assembly first hears the sutra and responds with joy. Suppose someone encourages another person, urging him to go and listen to the lotus, say the sutra is profound and wonderful, hard to encounter in 1,000, 10,000 cup. And suppose as urged the person goes to listen, even though he listens for just a moment, the blessings that the first person gets and reap. I will now describe in detail age after age, no afflictions of the mouth, no teeth missing, yellow or blackened lips that are not thick, curled or defect, no hateful features, a tongue not dry, black or too short, nose high, long and straight, forehead broad, smooth and well-shaped, face and eyes are all properly held and impressive. The kind people delight to look at, breath free of foul odor, a fragrance of Buddha Pala flowers constantly emit by the mouth. Suppose one goes to the monk quarters expressly to listen to the lotus suit and listens with joy for just a moment. I will not describe his blessings in existences to come among heavenly and human beings. He will acquire wonderful elephants, horses, carriages, carts adorned with rare jewels, and will of heaven. If in the place where the law is expounded, one encourages someone to sit and hear the sutra, the blessings he acquires will enable to gain the seat of Shaka Brahma and the wheel turner. How much more so if one listens single-minded, explains and expounds the meaning and practices the sutra, as the sutra instructs a person's blessings know no bounds. Tab 9, page 171. Part of the Prajnaparamita, the Bodhisattva Avalokita, while moving in the discourse of Prajnaparamita, shed light on the five skandhas and found them equally empty. After this penetration, he overcame ill-being. Listen, Chadi. Emptiness is form, form is not other than emptiness, emptiness is not other than form. The same is true with feelings, perception. Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They are neither produced nor destroyed, neither defiled nor immaculate, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore in emptiness there is neither form nor feelings, or perception, nor mental formations, or consciousness, no eye or ear or nose or tongue or body or form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realms of elements, so interdependent Take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. In the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world, dwelling in refuge of Dharma. I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation, dwelling in the refuge of Sangha. Shining light thus supports me, keeping my practice free of obstructions. Refuge in the Buddha, in myself I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love, taking refuge in the Dharma. In myself I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation, taking refuge in the Sangha. In myself I aspire to help all people build fourfold communities to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Citing the sutras, practicing the way of awareness gives rise to benefits without limits. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to offer tribute. Parents, teachers, friends, and